In episode 168 of the Guitar Music Theory podcast, I talk about my new coaching program, Running with the Devil, 3/4 versus 6/8 time, and more. Greetings, guitar engineers. Welcome to the Guitar Music Theory podcast. If you're captivated by the magic of guitar music and eager to unravel the mysteries of music theory, you're in the right place. I'm Desi Cerna, your host, fellow guitar enthusiast, and author of Fretboard Theory, Guitar Theory for Dummies, Guitar Picking Mechanics, and more. In each episode of this podcast, I delve into the fascinating world of guitar and music theory, demystifying complex concepts and providing practical insights to help you become a more informed and skilled guitarist. Together, we'll explore chord progressions, scales, improvisation techniques, and more, unlocking the secrets that make guitar music an irresistible art. Today, in episode 168, I tell you about my new coaching program. Plus, I answer listener questions about playing bass, playing with confidence, the song Running with the Devil by Van Halen, 3/4 versus 6/8 time, my old cover band set list, and more. It's going to be a great discussion, but before we get started, are you an aspiring guitarist but still struggling to play a full song or make real music? I bet the problem is you're drowning in information instead of actually playing. You're spending your time on things like music theory, scales, and fretboard memorization, when what you really need is the physical ability to pick up your guitar and play along with real songs. Guitar playing is all in the hands. You need to move your fingers quickly, use the right strumming patterns, control unwanted noise, stay on beat, and develop muscle memory. But right now, you're probably all over the place. You got a stack of guitar books from Amazon, a YouTube history full of tutorials, and multiple logins to various online course sites, yet you still can't confidently play a single song from start to finish. Look, if your goal is to pick up your guitar and just play, you need a large repertoire of songs you know like the back of your hand. And to build that, you need a structured, step-by-step plan that starts with simple playing and gradually introduces more technique. This is how you master all the little nuances that make your guitar playing sound polished and professional. And like anything, you have to walk before you run. If your long-term goal is to fingerpick, play lead guitar solos, or write your own music, focus first on laying a strong foundation with essential rhythm guitar skills. Then you can be just like my student Alan, who started out struggling with scales and music theory and couldn't play a single song. Now he's jamming out to his favorite tunes and enjoying every step of his guitar playing journey. Or Sarah, who thought she'd be stuck in open position chords forever, but is now tackling more complex pieces with ease and excitement. And Paul, after years of frustration, he's finally feeling music in a way he never thought possible. And there are many more just like them. So, if you're serious about playing pop and rock music from the 1960s to the 2000s on acoustic and electric guitar, and you're able to invest time and money in a serious, structured coaching program, send me an email and I'll show you how my play-along progression method can get you playing real music quickly and easily without any confusing theory or gimmicky games. I'll walk you through the 4 phases I've been using for decades to successfully teach thousands of people to play their favorite songs effortlessly. And I'll introduce you to the community I have built of fellow learners who share your passion. Look, if you're ready to do things differently so you can finally get the results you desire, send me an email. I'll walk you through my 4-phase play-along progression method so you can decide if it's right for you. Just send an email to desi@guitarmusictheory.com or go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, scroll down, click on the contact link, fill out the form, send me a message, and tell me that you want to learn more about developing your core skills and learning how to finally play full songs. Contact me today through guitarmusictheory.com to learn more about the play-along progression method. All right, so we are ready to dive in. So today I am using my new PRS SE NF3 guitar. Talked about that in the last podcast episode. It kind of looks like a Stratocaster guitar. It's got what appears to be a 3 single coil pickup configuration, but there are some things different about it. But here's how it sounds. So I talked about this in the last podcast, but I'm loving this guitar. It's not actually the same specs as a Stratocaster. It's got the PRS scale length instead of the Fender scale length. And you might look at this and think, oh, it's just built on the Silver Sky platform, but it's not. The Silver Sky, the John Mayer Silver Sky by PRS, is actually closer to Stratocaster specs. So this has the PRS scale length. It doesn't have the same fretboard radius as the Silver Sky. It has a PRS fretboard radius, 10-inch fretboard radius. It doesn't have any lacquer or anything on the back of the neck. It's all smooth and it's not sticky at all. It's only got 2 knobs, a master volume and a master tone, and they're set a little away from your picking hand so they don't get in the way. It's got the input jack is actually down on the side of the guitar. It's not on the face of the guitar body like a Strat is. And it's got the PRS trim system on it. I love the trem system because as long as you don't get too wild with it, it's one of the most stable trem systems and keeps this guitar in tune. And it appears to have 3 single coils, but they're actually little mini humbuckers. So this isn't as glassy as a traditional Strat, but it's perfect if you're doing something where you want a little bit of a thicker tone, something that would play better with overdrive and distortion without having any hum issues or something like that. So I already talked about this, but it really just works well for lead and it's pretty versatile, and I like the feel for this. And it's maybe kind of like a Super Strat in the sense that it's just beefed up a little bit to work a little bit better for some rock stuff. You can still do humbucker rock with this, little mini humbuckers. Anyway, this is the PRS SE NF3. It's an import from Indonesia. Check it out online. I'm really digging it, and I love it. And I have a Stratocaster that was built by Bluesman Vintage Guitars, and it's got that whole vintage, glassy, vintage mojo vibe. I love it. It's fantastic. This guitar doesn't have that same mojo, if you will, but it's a different thing. And I feel like this is a little bit more versatile. And if you're just doing like rock music and stuff, 80s rock, that sort of thing, it's perfect. And I actually picked this up because I was using it for the gig that I have playing in a Huey Lewis tribute band. And I used this on some performances, and it performed like a champ. But we're going to get started with our first question today. It comes from Roy, and he says, I've taken a few of your guitar courses and love them. I know that you play bass, and I'm wondering if you have any courses for bass guitar players. Everyone seems to need a bass player, so I thought I'd give it a try. Any thoughts of where to start? Yeah, that's a good question, Ray. The only course I currently have where I teach bass is my Worship Guitar 101 course, and that's geared towards people who are playing contemporary worship music in Sunday church services. And I explain how to approach some modern worship music on acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and bass. That's the only course I have where I teach bass. So maybe in the future I'll have something that's just more pop rock oriented. But in the meantime, here is my recommendation for anyone that wants to dabble with bass. First of all, I really enjoy playing bass. I learned how to play a lot of the bass lines to songs that I was playing in cover bands years ago because even though guitar was my primary instrument, sometimes I had to fill in for a bass player, and it was an opportunity for me to pick up some extra gigs and just be more versatile, and I really enjoyed it too. And then, I oftentimes play bass for Sunday morning services just because the ratio of guitarists to bassists is usually just way out of proportion, and we have lots of guitar players, and we're usually short on bass players, and so I don't mind telling people, hey, I'll play bass. I really enjoy it. It's kind of neat to be working in guitar stuff all week, and then on Sunday I go out and play bass, and it's kind of like a little bit of a break, I guess, But anyways, I really enjoy it. So this is what really helped me. I became a solid bass player. Here's how solid I became. When people were introduced to me through my bass playing, they just assumed I was a bass player. So typically when guitar players try to play bass, it's obvious that they're not a real bass player. It's a guitar player trying to play bass. And so I guess I wear it as a badge of honor that actually, funny story, I switched churches recently, so I've been at a different church for the past year, and I've played bass there, and they just scheduled me on bass, and it wasn't until recently that someone said, Desi, we found you online, and we didn't realize you played guitar. So last Sunday, they said, okay, well, we'll get you on guitar too. But I was happy just to play bass. But I got a lot of compliments on my bass playing. They said, yeah, you do a great job. You're a great musician and everything. So I was able to fool them into believing that I was just a bass player, which sometimes guitar players can't do that. It's kind of, it's noticeable that they're not a real bass player. So anyway, I wore it as a badge of honor that they didn't know I was a guitar player. So here's what helped me. This is what I recommend for anyone that wants to try playing bass. It's fun. It's not like you default to bass because you don't have an opportunity to play guitar. You're not good enough for guitar. Like bass there's so many killer bass players. You know what I mean? There's bass playing is so important in music. It's just, sometimes guitar players turn their nose up at it like it's a lesser instrument. It's not. So learn to play a wide range of songs on bass. So that's what I did. You hear me preach about that with guitar. I did the same thing on bass. And then you listen closely to the tracks, use software to isolate the bass line so you can hear the bass more clearly. You try to find tablature at websites like Ultimate Guitar or Sheet Music Direct. And pay attention to all the subtle aspects of bass playing, such as how the bass notes lock in with the kick drum, which beats are emphasized, whether the notes are played staccato or they're sustained or there's some ghost notes or muted notes. And you have to just keep in mind, if you're a guitar player playing bass, that bass is a completely different instrument. So many guitarists struggle with bass because they approach it with a guitarist mindset. And, to think like a bass player, you need to focus on how the bass is driving a song rhythmically and how the bass contributes to the feel of a song. That will make a difference. So go out there and learn some songs, some basic songs, and just, you might think that you got the changes down because you knew them on guitar, so you're just going to pick up your bass and just kind of strum along with the root notes. You got to listen carefully because oftentimes bass lines are syncopated. Listen to how it's locking in with that kick drum pattern. Listen to which beats you're emphasizing, where you're silent. This is where guitar players struggle because they're not thinking like a bass player. They fail to establish the groove that a bass player establishes along with the drummer. So listen like a bass player, learn parts, and play like a bass player. And maybe someday I will have a course. It might be cool just to show you how I approach some pop rock stuff and what I'm listening for and how I worked on my technique. I don't have like great bass technique. My bass playing is kind of 50% with a pick, 50% with my fingers, depending on how I feel like it was played on the recording or how I feel like I can best play something. Nothing wrong with using a pick on bass, particularly in pop and rock music. Bass, a lot of bass playing is used with a pick. But a lot of bass players fingered too, so you need to learn some of that finger technique so you can get that finger touch, and that's often important too. So I guess if I get enough people messaging me saying, yes, you definitely should release some courses on bass, I'll do it. But in the meantime, Roy, thanks for the question and best of luck to you. Next question. It says, hi, Desi. I'm subscribed to your podcast and really like your teaching style. I live here in Nashville, and I would like to take in-person lessons from you. And that comes from Don. Thanks, Don, for that question. I actually receive this from time to time. So the situation is I'm not really set up to do in-person lessons. My whole studio is, in my home here with family and stuff, and I really don't want people kind of coming in and out. And I don't really go out and set up shop in a music store or anything. So I'm just not set up for that. And I'm just very focused and busy on running my online business. And now I'm doing coaching through Zoom. I do private coaching lessons through Zoom and group stuff. So I'm really focusing on that. And actually, it works out really well. I'm able to really do a lot of things that are very effective for people, more effective than if I did just meet you in a music store. So consider signing up for some of my Zoom classes or some of my coaching and trying it out. Now, that said, I do like to meet people who are my kind of fans and followers, so to speak. So if you're in the Nashville area, reach out to me. Maybe we could just meet up at a local music store or something just to say hi and meet each other or grab a cup of coffee or something like that. I have had people that have just reached out and said, hey, I'm taking a vacation. I'm in Nashville. I'd love to meet you. And I was able to work it out where I could meet up with them, and I do enjoy that. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask that question. But as it stands right now, I'm not doing in-person lessons, and I don't really anticipate doing that unless sometime in the future, I think it would be really cool to have people travel here to Nashville, and I could put on kind of a little guitar conference or something like that. That would be pretty cool. We can, meet in a hotel and, just have some guests and do some group lessons and play together and maybe, go explore Nashville or something like that. Y'all like that idea? If you got ideas of how to do something like that, you might want to get involved and help coordinate something like that, because I would need help from people. Reach out. Let me know. Moving on. Christian says, Desi, I have bought your book, Guitar Rhythm and Technique for Dummies, and I have a question about time signatures. What is the difference between 2 measures of 3/4 or 1 measure of 6/8 time? Do they sound the same when played? Ooh, this is a good question. So, dealing with time signatures, let me back up for people who maybe aren't familiar with that. Most music is in what's called 4/4 time. There are 4 quarter notes to a measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's called common time because it's the most common, hence the name. Get it? But sometimes we'll have music that's in 3/4 time. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then sometimes we have music that's in 6/8 time. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, they're both kind of, triplets. So if you have a fast 3/4 time, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, well, why not count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here is a really easy, basic way to think about the true difference between whether something is best thought of in 3/4 time or 6/8 time. It has to do with where you count the quarter notes. So I'm on Ultimate Guitar here. I pulled up 2 songs, Open Arms by Journey, which is in 3/4 time, and Breaking the Girl by Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is in 6/8 time. And let me explain the difference. So here's Open Arms by Journey. This is in 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And here is Breaking the Girl. This is in 6/8 time. Now it could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's like a faster, or you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, what's the difference? Why not just count this in groups of 3? Because of the tempo here, when you're in 3s, the tempo will get to a point where suddenly you start to feel 2 beats per measure. Let me start this over. This is Breaking the Girl in 6/8. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, people will count it and feel it as 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's where you tap your foot. Tap, tap, tap. So when you are actually feeling 2 groups of 3 and you're kind of feeling a pulse as being like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 6/8 feel. It's got that kind of lilting feel. Back and forth, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Whereas 3/4 time, you usually wouldn't break it down that way. You're going to count the quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I wouldn't go 1, 2, 1, 2. It's too slow. It's too slow. I'm going to count the quarter notes on this one. Now, that said, I pulled this up in Ultimate Guitar. They're using a 6/8 time signature. I don't think I would have notated it that way. I also opened this up in Sheet Music Direct, and they have Open Arms by Journey and a 3/4 time signature. Mathematically, it could still work out either way. Sometimes there's a little crossover. It's like with certain songs at certain tempos. It's like, is this 3/4? Is there 6/8? I'm not really an expert on this because, I just, my use of standard musical notation is limited. But if someone who lives and breathes this, maybe an orchestra musician or someone who conducts or someone who composes music using standard notation, they might be able to give you more of an answer than I'm giving you. But I would say for us guitar players, what's the main difference? If you're finding that you're actually counting 3 beats as 1 and you're going 1, 2, da, 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 I consider that 6/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you're actually counting the quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, then I consider that to be 3/4 time. Great question there. That comes from Christian, and he gave me a plug for my book, Guitar Rhythm and Techniques for Dummies. My book, Guitar Theory for Dummies, is far more popular, but I really wrote about some interesting things in guitar rhythm and techniques for dummies. So y'all should go out and get that book. All right, next I have a message from Steve. He says, "Hey Desi, thanks for answering my question about soreness in my fretting hand. It was a great checklist of things to watch. Standing up while playing fixed the issue, along with shaking out my hand after each song so that it doesn't start to cramp up. Plus, standing has the added benefit of making me feel like a rock god! ! I also think familiarity and practice have made me more confident, and that's helped me relax in my playing." Ooh, good point. Yeah. "Seriously, thanks for your lessons and advice. I can see the progress I've made since I started your courses. I hit a plateau, and your lessons have really helped me move past it. My goal was to focus on learning whole songs this year, and it's happening. Best, Steve." Yeah, I have a video on YouTube, so I don't know if I answered this question in my last podcast or where it came up. I'm working from my notes here, and I didn't write that down, but at some point I answered a question about how how do you deal with soreness and stuff like that? And a lot of people ask me, like, is there a different position I can use, or do I need to get a different guitar? Yes, of course. You always need to buy another guitar. But I have a video that you can check out on YouTube that says, just put Desi Cerna small hands. And it was a video where I addressed, like, what do you do if you're a small-handed person or person of, small stature, and you're having trouble with a full-size instrument? And I talk about, like, things to consider about guitar shapes and sizes and neck shapes and how you hold your guitar. Is it on your right leg, your left leg? Are you elevating a leg? Are you using a strap? Are you standing up? Because all of these things affect the way that you're able to spread your fingers, and they can affect just your comfort with playing bar chords and stuff like that. And while the main topic was aimed at answering people who had small hands, or smaller people, there's a lot that anyone can learn from that video, regardless of what your stature is. And sometimes people don't realize that if you're always just sitting down holding your guitar on your right thigh, that can work well for some things, but sometimes it just doesn't really put your hand in the best position, which can lead to some issues possibly. And so maybe you need to swap it over to the other leg and elevate that leg, or maybe you need to stand up and use a strap. And if you do stand up and use a strap, a Telecaster hangs differently than a Stratocaster, hangs differently than a Gibson SG. Maybe you want to think about those things. How high the strap is affects the ergonomics of playing, that can affect your comfort and whether or not, you get soreness or cramping or something like that. And then I love what Steve here said about, the familiarity and practice has made him more confident, and that's helped me relax too. We can often really tense up in playing situation when the pressure's on, or playing in front of other people, and that added stress and, tensing up definitely has an effect. So you have to learn how to just be more confident, how to relax, find a more comfortable playing position. If you're gonna go practice with a band, or play with a band, make sure you practice in the same way so you're prepared for that situation. Moving on, Alistair says, Desi, you often refer back to your gigging days, and I was wondering if you could supply the set list of songs you used to cover. I'm like so many home guitarists that can play lots of parts of songs, main riffs, solos, etc., but want to put together a full repertoire of complete songs. And as you often refer to songs that I like, thought it might be a good place to start. I also like making them sound like the recording and not just playing the basic chords. Yeah, I don't have a set list back from the old band days. I played in cover bands and, party band, wedding band, that sort of thing, back in the 90s. Anyone remember the 90s? And the early 2000s. And a lot has changed since then. So what used to be staples back then may not be staples. There's a lot of new songs that are staples now that I didn't play. Yeah, you might just kind of Google it and just see essential cover band set lists or something like that. Or go out and figure out who are the popular bands, the party bands. Go watch them play and let's see what are they playing? I have done some stuff recently and I had to learn some newer stuff, some country stuff or some stuff like Uptown Funk and that sort of thing. But, back in the 90s and back in my heyday, we had to do some oldies. There were certain staples like Brown Eyed Girl. And I have a whole video lesson breaking down the picking on that one, Go to YouTube, search Desi Cerna, Brown Eyed Girl. Other stuff we had to do, dance funk stuff. Play that funky music. I do have a How Does This Song Work? Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry on YouTube you can find. Back in the 90s and stuff, you had to do some of the rock songs that were on the radio and were popular. That is, Please Tell Me Why My Car Is in the Front Yard. My Own Worst Enemy. Lit. Gosh, taking me back. We can't forget this one. Closing time. Open up the doors and let you out into the world. Anyway, so a lot of that stuff, I had to learn so many songs, a lot of dance songs. It was so good. It was such a great music education because I really listened carefully to the songs, and I was oftentimes leading the bands and everything. So I was helping the keyboard player out. He's like, what chords are these? So I'd listen to the keys or help the bass player out. I oftentimes would arrange the backup vocals. What are the harmonies here? And I have to work those out. So I really learned so much about music. It was such a great music education. And me, with my mind, instead of just memorizing stuff, like I was trying to understand the key and what was happening musically in the song. And then it was also fantastic for my skills because I had to practice all this stuff, and then I went out and had to play it for hours, and I was playing, at 3 to 5 nights a week sometimes, and a gig would have been 3 1-hour sets. So if you're playing just 3 nights a week, boom, there's 9 hours of just performing, and that doesn't include all the prep work that you put into it. So such a great education, really helped whip me into shape. But sorry, I don't have a better answer for that, but I would say, yeah, just Google it. But I mean, just find something, It is a great idea to learn complete songs. You don't necessarily have to learn them note for note. I always encourage people who are learning their first songs, simplify things. Break it down to what's the most, essential needed part to put a song together. And typically that's the chord changes. I think everyone needs to learn how to just strum along with a variety of popular songs using open chords, power chords, and bar chords. There's so much technique, so much to learn about music, so many skills to develop there. If you haven't done that, do that first. Then you can start taking a closer look at the tab and fill in with some more specific parts. Maybe there's a hook or a riff or a solo. Maybe there's something more specific to the rhythm guitar that you want to do. But don't get ahead of yourself and don't bite off more than you can chew. It's okay to simplify things initially. Think about when you go see like an acoustic duo or something, they're playing some music on a patio of a Mexican restaurant or something, and they're singing and playing popular songs and everybody loves it. They're not playing songs note for note. They broke it down to the basic chord changes, and then they're singing the words. And so that's a great way to get started. Not go out and book a gig and do that, but it's like, okay, let's put together a set of music of songs that aren't difficult to play that you could break down that way. Make a Spotify playlist, and then play along like you're an added rhythm guitar player. Don't worry about all the details. Just make sure that you're following the basic changes and you're keeping in time with the music and just kind of adding your own layer. That, of course, is what I've been doing in my current coaching program that I'm promoting, is I'm helping people get those core skills together, play along with some full songs. And at the end of this program I put together, I want to have each student that's got one set worth of music that they can play down beginning to end. For most people who are enrolling, they're learning how to do this for the first time. And we're taking a simplified approach, but we're really getting all those core skills in order, and people are having fun because they're making music that people would actually enjoy listening to, and they have something tangible to show for all the time that they practice, instead of just practicing aimlessly and noodling with something here or learning a piece of theory here. We're working strictly towards, let's reach this goal of, at the end of this, you're going to start your Spotify playlist and you're going to play those songs down from memory, from all of them, for a whole hour or something like that, as if you were in a band. Hey Desi, first off, I've gotten a lot of mileage out of your material, and I took your lead guitar improv class, read your fretboard theory book, and have watched several of your videos, so thanks for that. I want to get your opinion on something. I've been playing guitar regularly for about 4 years. I'm in a band, and I struggle to perform a lot of songs at practice. I can play almost all of them when I'm practicing at home, but when we rehearse, I botch a lot of the lead parts and space out on some of the rhythm parts. I don't know if this is because of mental fatigue. We often practice right after I get off work, the pressure of performing in front of a group, or working my hands too hard. I often practice a couple hours a day, and I'm on a laptop 8 hours a day for my job. I should add that several of the band's songs might be above my ability level, at least for performing. We play stuff like Badge by Cream and Any Major Dude by Steely Dan, but I make mistakes on some of the easier material too. I've filled in on bass before, and I felt more comfortable in that role, but that's not as much fun, and my hands are often sore from stretching across the frets. I'm worried I'm going to get replaced in the band at some point, and despite the issues, I really enjoy playing with this group. Any thoughts on how to deal with this problem? Thanks again, Dan. Well, Dan, I think what you're experiencing is not all that uncommon. You haven't been playing all that long, and you don't have a whole lot of experience playing in a band, it sounds like, so it's natural that you might have some nervousness, and you're just not used to it. So there's several things, that I might point out just to kind of help encourage you. One might be that you do want to be careful that you're not biting off more than you can chew. And this is something that you got to keep in mind at every stage. I go out and play with a band sometimes, and sometimes when I'm at home, I'll get some really elaborate ideas of how I want to spice up a guitar part or a guitar solo. But I'm usually pushing myself too much. It's not something that I feel totally comfortable with executing consistently, particularly when I'm in a band situation where I don't know what the monitor situation is like. I may not be able to hear myself. It may, like I talked about earlier, sometimes you play a 2-hour show that could be an outside performance. It's hot, it's sweaty. There's so many things that can kind of throw you off your game a little bit. And I've learned over the years to just make sure that I'm playing things that I'm comfortable with. And I'm careful not to always to push myself too much beyond my limits, I mean, we need to push ourselves beyond limits to some extent. That's how we get better. But so maybe you need to think about if there are some songs or some parts that you're playing right now that maybe you need to simplify them. I often simplify things when I'm looking to perform well, or when I'm learning something. I realize that I sometimes need to either simplify things, or maybe I'm not simplifying it, but I'm changing something to play it in a manner that's more familiar or more comfortable for me, because then I know that I'll consistently play it well. And that's what's really important. People will not always remember if you changed a guitar part if you're playing cover music, unless they're a real guitar nerd that just wants to be super, super picky. But they will remember when somebody seems to play well and their playing is fluid and they play with confidence. So sometimes I've had to take parts that I'm playing and I realize, like, I'm fumbling through this and I don't want to look like a guitar player who's fumbling. And I realize that if I make a couple changes or simplify a few things, I don't take away from the song or the part or the energy, and I'm able to play things in a manner that I'm more comfortable with. Sometimes it means just changing a lick or changing a run to something that's just as cool in some cases, but it just it's more in my wheelhouse and has a technique that I'm used to. So And you might just need to be careful about the songs that you're picking. That's actually pretty common. Sometimes I have students come to me and they're like, well, we want to play in this band and, we're going to, they've got all these songs. And I'm like, look, like you guys are really picking some challenging stuff with a lot of parts and a lot of extended guitar solos. And I understand why you're picking that because you listen to that music and you love it and maybe you want to impress. But particularly if you don't have a lot of experience playing in a band, like, you can pick some simpler music. Maybe do some Tom Petty before you try to do some Eddie Van Halen, or something like that. So you do have to consider those things. I certainly understand what you're talking about, where you're at a computer all day, at a keyboard, and then you're practicing, and then you're, showing up to rehearsal at night, and you're tired and you're fatigued. Like, yeah, that all factors in, and so you got to consider that stuff. You need to be realistic about the music that you're choosing, and just the expectations that you're putting on yourself. But something else to consider, which actually might make a big difference, is practice as if you are performing. Try standing up, using a guitar strap, and when you're practicing or you're rehearsing, you're playing along with backing tracks for the music, and you're trying to replicate that experience of being in a band or being on stage as much as you can. If you're practicing at home and you get used to a certain environment where you're sitting down and you're in a comfortable position and you're hearing things a certain way, then when you are at rehearsal or on stage and everything's different and you're standing up and you're not hearing your guitar the same way and there's noise around you and stuff like that can throw you off your game. So when I rehearse for a show, if I know that I'm going to have my in-ear monitors in, I put my in-ear monitors in, and that's how I rehearse at home. And I stand up, and I've got things arranged like they will be arranged when I'm on stage. And sometimes I turn the music up extra loud that I'm playing along with, and I turn my guitar down lower than I want, because I know that it's very common in live situations where I can't hear my guitar the way that I want. So I make sure that I practice and rehearse so that I'm prepared for being in that environment, in that situation. Next, I think you can make improvements with just experience. The more you play with others, the more natural it will feel and the more you will get used to it. I had these issues when I first started playing in bands and stuff, but what's interesting is eventually, because I played so much, I got to the point where I was most comfortable on stage performing. So that can happen. If you play most of the time, sitting at home in your bedroom on a cozy little chair, with your cozy little studio monitors or headphones or whatever, then that's what you get most used to. So as you play more and more with others, you learn how to relax, and you do get better at it. I know that I certainly did. The last thing that I'll add is that I disagree that bass isn't fun. Bass can be a lot of fun. You do it right, you got a good tone, you listen carefully to the bass lines in these songs and listen to all the little nuances that help the bass, groove and drive the song, and you're in the pocket. I actually really enjoy playing bass. And I do it, I've done it occasionally in bands. Most of my experience was with guitar, but I learned a lot of the songs on bass too, so I could fill in on bass and everything. And I play a lot of bass at church on Sunday, because we usually just have more guitar players than bass players. And so I'm like, I'll play bass, and I've really enjoyed it. But anyway, I get what you're saying. You want to play guitar, that's fine. But bass can be a lot of fun, and sometimes guitar players don't have fun on bass because they're not very good at it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Let's move on. Alistair says he has a question from Fretboard Theory. He says, when you introduce modes in Volume 1, Chapter 8, and then again in Volume 2, Chapter 2, you talk about playing the appropriate scale over the appropriate chord progression, which I get, and it evolves then into you renumbering the chord progressions. In Volume 2, Chapter 7, you talk about the different scale formulas for each mode. I'm assuming we have progressed with our knowledge and that we now have an additional option of playing the appropriate mode scale, not just the parent scale over the chord progression. Okay, so my answer here is that the mode and the parent scale are actually the same thing. At least they're the same notes. So if you're playing over the progression A minor to D, the parent scale is G major, but you're actually producing the sound of A Dorian mode. You can think of it either way. You can think my parent scale here is G major, or you can say, but I'm playing from A to A, and that's A Dorian mode. Now, he talked about this whole renumbering thing. Let me explain this to people that aren't familiar with it. So in the first volume of Fretboard Theory, that's my guitar theory books, Fretboard Theory. I got Volume 1 and Volume 2. First one is red, second one is blue or purple, depending on how you see it. And when I first introduce modes, I just explain that you can take a major scale and its chords, you harmonize it and you get your chord progressions. And melodies and that sort of thing. But when you the modal concept is based on the fact that, well, you don't always have to center your music on the first pitch. You could actually take the same scale and the same notes and the same chords, and everything could revolve around the second degree. Okay? Different sound. Why is it different? Well, if I'm using the same notes, why does it sound different? Because our ear is now hearing this as the center of the music. So we're hearing those notes now from A to A as opposed to G to G. And you can do that with each scale degree and you get a slightly different sound. And that's what modes are, people. So you can learn about the whole concept, and I go through all the different modes and reference familiar songs and stuff that use the modes and show you how to apply it and everything. That's in Fretboard Theory. I also teach that in Guitar Theory for Dummies, which covers a very similar scope. It's basically kind of a rewrite of Fretboard Theory. Either book would be fine. If you're more of a video learner, you can go to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, and I got a full-blown, like 30-plus hour big video course where I walk you through the whole Fretboard Theory program with videos, and there's a lot of extra stuff in there that really help you learn that material and apply it. Now, after introducing the basic modal concept, I then explained that, well, the whole number system that we use in music can change when we're in a mode. So in other words, if I'm in the key of G, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, 1, 4, 5. I can build chords off of each one. You get like your chord progressions, 1, 4, 5. And if I was playing a progression like A minor to D, that would be 2, 5. Because that's the second degree and chord in the scale, and D is the fifth degree and chord in the scale. However, another way that you can look at this is in music, you can always count your tonic pitch as 1. So if I'm in that A Dorian mode, even though it's the second degree of the G major scale, technically in music, whatever your tonic pitch is, we consider that 1. That's our starting point, because we hear everything in relationship to 1, we would renumber from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, that changes the whole structure of the scale. It's not the same as the major scale anymore. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we now have a root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Now we have a root, second, minor third, fourth, fifth, sixth, minor seventh. And also our numbers would change with our chord progression. A minor is not 2 anymore, it's 1. D is not 5 anymore, it's now 4. So this would be, that's a minor 1 to a major 4 chord progression. Did I confuse you there? So I talk about this when I teach my guitar theory stuff, and it is actually good to learn it both ways, but I don't recommend that you learn what I just explained initially. It's too confusing. Initially, just learn the major scale and its number system, and then what I do is I introduce how you could use any note as your starting point, and as I introduce that concept, I don't change the structure of the scale. I don't renumber things. I don't want to confuse you. Once you get that concept down, then later as you advance, I say, now let's do the same thing, but let's go through and renumber it. And it is very helpful to do that because when you get into a lot of modal playing or harmonic minor or other things, you have to understand how music is thought of and numbered according to its tonic. I don't think I'm going to say anything more than that. I think that's enough now, but either way you look at it, getting back to original question, if you're playing the notes of G major over a chord progression that's based on chords that are made from notes of G major. For example, A minor 7 to D. Those are chords 2 and 5 out of the G scale, or they're 1 and 4 out of the Dorian scale. In either case, it's the same notes. You can think of G as your parent scale, it is, or you can think that it's A Dorian mode, it is. It's all one and the same. One final thing I will say, music theory is very interesting, and it is actually very useful. It helps you understand how songs are composed and written, helps you kind of track things on the fretboard. It helps you kind of get stuck out of ruts where maybe you're just always viewing things from a particular perspective. And sometimes you don't realize that you can make all sorts of wonderful sounds if you just understood what you were doing more. So music theory definitely has its place and it's very usable. However, you need to have a certain amount of core playing skills before music theory is going to be useful to you, because you're not going to be able to apply it, So make sure you don't get ahead of yourself if you are either new to guitar or you've been playing for a while, but you're really lacking solid skills where you could just go sit in with a band and hold down several songs playing rhythm guitar and be in the pocket and have a good clean sound. Focus on that first. Get those skills together so that you have the foundation, and then you can get into music theory and lead guitar solos and modes and the other fun stuff. I see it too often where aspiring guitarists get ahead of themselves and they're going down the music theory rabbit hole before they've actually developed their physical playing skills. If you need help, I got a whole brand new coaching program that focuses on that. Just shoot me an email, desi@guitarmusictheory.com, or use the contact form on my website and request more information about that program specifically if it sounds like I'm describing you, and I'll send you a link and we'll talk about it. Moving on, Joseph has a question about Running with the Devil by Van Halen. Ooh, this is a good one. He says, I've purchased several classes from you, and I'm currently doing fretboard theory. I'm on the caged theory section. In analyzing Van Halen's Running with the Devil, I don't understand what is going on with the key. In the introduction, the song is basically triads and goes from C to D, D to G, and then A to E, all major triads. You got 5 chords, all major, which do not fit into any key, as all keys only have 3 major chords. Can you explain what is going on here? All right, well, Joseph, this is a tricky one. The introduction can be seen as using the composition technique of modal interchange. I introduced this in Fretboard Theory Volume 2. Anyway, the E minor modes Aeolian and Dorian include all of these chords and are used in this case to lead to the tonic pitch E, which is played as major. The bass player is pedaling on an E the whole time. Oh, let's take that delay off. That didn't do it. So the bass player is pedaling E the whole time, and then let's put that delay back on there. So our tonic pitch is E. So in Fretboard Theory Volume 1, I talk about basic keys and basic progressions. Got to start there, got to know that. It's the foundation for everything. Then we build on top of that. In Volume 2, it's like, okay, well, what different types of E keys can there be? There could be E major, there could be E minor, there could be E Dorian mode, there could be E Mixolydian mode. And so a composition technique sometimes is where you'll have a tonic pitch, E, and then you'll think about, well, what chords would I have in E major? So I could have an E major, or I could have A or B. All right, well, what chords could I have in E minor? Well, I'd have E minor and stuff like C, D, and E. And then you can think, okay, well, what if I kind of combine those parallel scales, different scales, but they start in the same tonic? Well, then I could use the C and the D from E minor, and then I could use... let's see. How about G from E Dorian mode, A major from either E Dorian mode or E major, and E major. So see what I'm doing here? And I give you examples in Fretboard Theory Volume 2 where we do some interesting stuff where we draw from some parallel scales. And that's what connects this chord progression here. They're all leading to that tonic pitch E, and they're all in different types of E scales. At least that's how we can think about it from a music theory perspective. Now, some people would just, dismiss that and say, that's ridiculous, you're overanalyzing this, that's dumb, just memorize the tab and just play the part, And, well, you certainly could do that, but actually you're missing out on a lot of things, because as I explore when I teach this stuff, like, well, let's take that concept and let's see what kind of interesting things we can do once we understand what's happening here. So you can learn a song like Running with the Devil, and instead of just memorizing it, you can have an understanding of why it works, and then you can take those ideas and it will help you figure out other songs, because you might come across another song that seems to be all over the place, and you're like, wait a minute, what's my tonic pitch here? What are the common scales to that tonic pitch? What are the common chords in those scales? And you probably will figure out, that's what it's doing, and it'll help you figure songs out. It'll also help you remember things too, because as you go back to play that song, you're like, I remember that it had some E major in there and it had some E minor, so I'm going to be thinking about my E major chords and my E minor chords, and it helps you remember things, and it can help you write stuff and be creative too. So people who dismiss the music theory as just overanalyzing or overthinking, honestly, are a little ignorant. They're not realizing the potential there. And I don't know exactly what was running through the mind of Van Halen when he wrote and played this song, but I know that he actually had quite a bit of music theory training when he was younger, and when he took formal piano lessons and stuff like that. And so that may have guided him, or maybe that exploration of music theory introduced him to these sounds, and then he just heard them and he was chasing those sounds on the guitar. And speaking of sounds, let's talk about this awesome sound here. This is actually a pack that's available for Kemper and Helix users and maybe other platforms, I'm not sure. It's available from tonejunkie.tv. This is put together by Matt Revere. He did a killer job, and he has a whole collection of sounds that are dialed in for certain artists like Eddie Van Halen or Slash or John Mayer or Jimi Hendrix. If you just go to Google and search Tone Junkie, inspired by Eddie Van Halen or Tone. Well, for this particular pack, you can search Tone Junkie inspired by Eddie Van Halen, and then if you have a Kemper or a Helix, you can download all of these sounds. This particular sound was made for the song "Ain't Talking About Love." Which I need to practice. And I just pulled it up, but let's see, what else does he have in here? We've got Ain't Talking About Love, Beat It, Eruption, Hot for Teacher, Judgment Day, Jump, Pretty Woman. We're going to get off track here, but let's do Pretty Woman. Anyway, Google Tone Junkie inspired by Eddie Van Halen, and you could download this pack and have a lot of fun with it. But we are moving on. Oh, actually, before I move on, see how well this guitar can kind of work with that sort of style there? Doesn't sound as anemic as a classic Strat would. Of course, Eddie Van Halen had a full-size humbucker in the bridge position. This is a mini humbucker, but it still gives you the opportunity to have something that's similar to a Strat, but more versatile. All right, episode 168 is a wrap. If you have questions or topics you would like answered or discussed in future podcast episodes, just head to my website, guitarmusictheory.com, scroll down and click on the contact link and send me your message. And remember about the new coaching program I'm offering. It combines video instruction with one-on-one Zoom lessons, plus group live streams and a community. It's for aspiring guitar players who are still struggling to play full songs and make real music. Maybe you're spending time on things like music theory and scales and fretboard memorization, when what you really need is the physical ability to pick up your guitar and play along with real songs. Guitar playing is in the hands. You need to move those fingers and use strumming patterns and control noise and stay on beat and develop muscle memory. And right now, maybe you're all over the place. Maybe you've got a stack of books from Amazon and a YouTube history full of tutorials and multiple logins to various online course sites, yet you still can't confidently play a single song from start to finish. Look, if your goal is to be able to pick up your guitar and just play, you need a large repertoire of songs that you know like the back of your hand. And to build that, you need a structured step-by-step plan that starts with simple playing and gradually introduces more technique. This is how you master all of the little nuances that make your guitar playing sound polished and professional. Like anything, you have to walk before you run. If your long-term goal is to finger pick, play lead guitar solos, or write your own music, focus first on laying a strong foundation with essential rhythm guitar skills. And I've got the perfect program for you. It includes a video course, private one-on-one Zoom lessons, group live streams, and a community that'll help you work on your core skills, build your song repertoire, fill in all the little gaps in your playing so that you can lay the foundation to reach your music goals. If you're serious about playing pop and rock music from the 1960s to the 2000s on acoustic and electric guitar, and you're able to invest time and money into a serious, structured coaching program, send an email to desi@guitarmusictheory.com or go to the website and click on the contact link. Tell me you're interested in this program, and we can start a discussion, and I will explain to you my play-along progression method so you can decide if it's the right fit for you. If you're ready to do things differently so you can finally get the results you desire, reach out to me and let's talk. All right, guitar engineers, thanks for listening. I'm Desi Cerna. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and leave a review or post a comment if you can. Then keep playing and stay tuned for more.